Welcome to High Stakes. I'm your host, Tracy Devlin. On this show, I chat with authors about the moments in their stories that change everything, what's at stake, what it costs, and why we can't look away. From thrillers to romance to sci-fi and beyond. Let's get to it. I'm here with award-winning and Amazon best-selling author Bonnie Traymore to talk about her newest domestic thriller, The Rich Guy's Wife. Welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to be here today.
Absolutely. Do you have the book there that you can show
I
us?
do.
Yeah,
Here
great.
it is.
It's such a great cover. Love it.
I think they did a great job. They really nailed it. Like I didn't even have to do too many versions of this one. It was just like, yep, that's
Yeah,
exactly what I had in
perfect.
mind. But
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. Captures the whole vibe of the book perfectly. Absolutely. So I always love to open the show and thank you for joining me on the first episode of the newly branded High Stakes podcast here. So I really appreciate you being our first guest, and yeah, so it's going to be
I'm
some
really
fun to.
honored, actually.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather spend the episode one with. So I appreciate you carving out some time here around the holidays for me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, you betcha. So how does someone who lives in such a bright and beautiful place like Hawaii write such edgy, nightmarish thrillers?
But that's it's a funny thing because I've met a lot of thriller authors. One of the like unintended but wonderful benefits of becoming a thriller author that I had no idea was going to happen is I just made so many author friends like you and many other people. And the funny thing is, a lot of the people who write these kind of twisted marriage weird stories are actually pretty happily married and their lives are pretty boring. So it's a weird, it's kind of a weird trick of the trade. Unless everybody's faking it. I mean, I'm not. I'm happily married, but this is more kind of it came out of, my dating experiences in Manhattan. I live in Honolulu now, but I've had a couple of key periods where I've lived in Manhattan and I've dated in Manhattan. And, as anybody knows, it's a tough place. It's a tough place to meet people. It's a tough place to make it. And that allure of, meeting that rich guy or girl. I mean, you could be a guy and marry into money too. Is there. I mean, it's definitely very, very tempting because you can feel the have and the have not. Whereas in somewhere like Honolulu, um, even if you don't have a lot of money, you can still go to the beach. So you can still do a lot of great things and fun things
Yeah.
in Honolulu. It's expensive, but Manhattan, I feel like you walk out of the door and like $50 is out of your pocket. You didn't even do so. So that was kind of the impetus for it. And I guess some of my fears I play out in these novels, especially the domestic thrillers, because I feel
Mm,
like thinking about, somebody inside your home, which is supposed to be your sanctuary, being against you, that
yeah.
to me is like scarier than, thinking about a terrorist or some other kind of like plot, different kind of thriller. So that's why I think I gravitate to the domestic thriller. Maybe it exercises my fears in a way, putting it into my protagonist.
Yeah, and especially in this story, and we'll jump into talking about the book here in a second, but she was constantly struggling with am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Am I feeling what I think I'm feeling? Is this just me being paranoid? That sort of thing. So I that happens all the time. You're constantly second guessing yourself about so many things throughout, your whether you're at home or whether you're at work or whether you're at the grocery store, sometimes you're just constantly second guessing yourself. So, I could really feel that whenever I was reading the story, and I thought you did an amazing job with that.
Well, thank you. I this is one of those ones where like I didn't really know until the end like who it
Mm.
was. So if you didn't know, that's because I didn't know. I kept going parts and I was conflicted between like
Yeah.
well, and I had a bunch of different endings that I was mulling over. So yeah, I kind of lived it with Aaron. Like I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't know if I was just, seeing what I wanted to see or, hearing what I wanted to hear, or if it was my mother's warnings or my, you know, best friend's warnings. I didn't know what to believe
Yeah.
as writer and the protagonist.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, before we dive into The Rich Guy's Wife, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing journey, just whatever you'd like to share.
Sure. I have been a massive consumer of mysteries, thrillers, Hitchcock movies, the Twilight Zone, anything. Even since I was a little kid, I used to hide in my room, and late at night, I had a little black and white TV, an old TV that they kind of let me have, and I wasn't supposed to be watching it, but I would watch it, and I would watch all these old, movies, and I love to be scared.
Yeah.
So from an early age, Nancy Drew, then Stephen King, then all these different, I kind of discovered the domestic thriller probably around the Gone Girl era,
Hmm.
and started to get really hooked on domestic psychological thrillers. Um, I'd always written kind of on the side. First, I tried writing novels. I traveled a lot. I wrote travel articles. And then I was an academic for 20 something years and I wrote nonfiction academic work. But it was really about 15 years ago or 10 years ago. I think 10 years ago, I tried to write my first novel. It was kind of a romantic suspense. And I did one, then I did another one, and it wasn't very good. So I just put it aside. And then around 2021, I started getting like a lot more serious about, okay, if I'm going to really write, I've just got to get doing it. And so I
Yeah.
started more on craft. I found ITW. I did some of I took all their I don't know if you know, but you can like buy the Thriller Fest tapes before you go to the conference. And so I would just list for 2 summers, I could listen to the
Yeah.
conference tapes after. And I applied what I was doing and I wrote, Killer Motives, which came out in 2022. And that was my debut. And I was trying to get it out because my dad and I shared a love of mysteries. And
Uh,
he died about, I think, a month before it came out, which was kind of a
oh,
bummer, but he knew it was coming out. And so
yeah.
we had always had that, love of mysteries and we'd share authors. He loved Sandra Brown was one that he really loved, her, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
so that was how it started. And I just never stopped. I just kind of powered through and now it's 2025 and I've got 12 novels. So
Amazing.
yeah, I was teaching full time, but then about a year and a half ago, I stopped teaching and just focused on the writing. So it's been an amazing journey. I didn't expect. I mean, it's not like I'm super successful or something, anything, but the amount of success that I've gotten has been like a lot more than I expected. I just thought I was having fun. Like I didn't really expect to kind of sell that as many books as I've sold or kind of have this audience. So I'm grateful for every person that doesn't completely hate my book. I'll just tell you that.
Well, we chatted about this a little bit before I hit the record button, but I also saw it on your social media about how The Rich Guy's Wife is doing really great in Kindle Unlimited. I think it was over 1 million reads at that time, and so yeah, that's so congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was nice. I got an all-star bonus a couple months in a row, so that was fun. I felt
Yeah.
about that, and I've sold the rights to Tantor Media, so they're going to be producing the audiobook of it, which
Oh,
should be
great.
maybe late 2026. So that felt really good. That
Yeah.
felt like an accomplishment.
Well, when you've worked so hard and then you start seeing the fruits of your labor, kind of really manifesting themselves in these ways that you're talking about here, it does. It feels wonderful and it's nice to see and be able to celebrate that.
Because it's such a tough business right now. I mean, even just in the
Hmm.
last couple of years, I think it's really changed.
Yeah.
So I don't take it for granted. Like I was kind of telling you before, like I don't count on it, I don't want to count on it. I just want it to be something that if it comes, great. If it
Yeah.
isn't, I'm not going to fall apart. Of course, you get kind of addicted to it, don't you? You like
You
to see it
do.
keep going
Yeah.
up. And
Yeah.
um, I try not to, let it dominate my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, what can you tell us about The Rich Guy's Wife? I always like to leave it to the author so I don't inadvertently do any spoilers for readers. What can you tell us?
So the idea of it came from a friend of mine when I was living in Manhattan. I've had like a couple of periods when I've spent time. Like I grew up in the New York City area, so my first job was in Manhattan. So I was in my early 20s, to mid 20s before I quit my job, traveled around the world, and landed in Honolulu, which is a whole other story. I dated in Manhattan as a 20 something. And then when I was in my 40s, I was divorced, and my dad was in New York and my brother, and so I'd bring my daughter back for the summers, and we'd spend summers. I had a couple years I had gigs teaching history classes at Columbia because I have a PhD in history. I don't know if anyone knows that about me, but so I was teaching, at Columbia these 6 week classes, and I'd do apartment trades, and then my dad could watch my daughter sometimes, and I would go out. And one of my good friends who I knew from New York and Honolulu, she was dating this billionaire in the Hamptons, and she was just telling me these stories like she didn't really know what he did for a living, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, do you think he's doing something nefarious? And she's like, no. I mean, I don't think he was, but that was where the seed was planted. Like,
Yeah,
what if you started to like go to his house and weird stuff started happening, like, and then you knew too much? Like, well, that was the seed of the story, and then
right.
just my sort of like crazy dating episodes in New York factored into it, and my living and working. And so I lived and worked in New York most recently in 2022 when my dad was sick. I came out and I got a college counseling job in the city. And so, but I was married then, so I wasn't doing any dating. I was just and observing. But it
Yeah.
was good to be there when I was writing, finishing Killer Motives because it's set in the city in Westchester where my brother lives. So I was able to kind of spend more time. So I've been setting a lot of books back east where I grew up. My first one set in Honolulu is coming out in February. It's called The Valet. And so that's the first time I've like actually set
Oh,
something.
nice.
I'm like really nervous. It seems easier
Yeah.
to set it back where I lived. And so this is the story of this woman, this Erin. She's early 30s. She's been raised by a single mom. She grew up in this section called Bay Ridge, which I'm familiar with because my dad lived in Bay Ridge for a while, which is, I mean, at least when he was there, it was kind of a mixed, it wasn't like trendy Brooklyn. It was more like
Yeah.
old Brooklyn. And so she grew up with her nose pressed against the glass with this single mom who worked in a fancy club and served the super rich. And she always warned Aaron, like, it's not what you think it is, not all it's cracked up to be. And so, um, and so Aaron's like, yeah, 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 or that's fine. But like, I'm not, I've already tried, like, I have student loan debt, I'm working, I'm not making enough money. And so she meets this guy, Stefan Ziegler, who sweeps her off her feet. And she has to fight the voice that it's too good to be true. He's like faint German accent. He's got a house in the Hamptons. And she kind of she goes along with it. And then something happens, which would be a little bit of a spoiler
Yeah.
that changes it for her. Um, but I think people talk about this in the reviews, so I can give away this one spoiler that changes the stakes. She gets pregnant. She gets accidentally pregnant, and that's when she starts to realize, oh God, like what's going to happen now? Because I don't know how he's going to react, and
Hmm.
even if he reacts positively, like I don't know him that well, and he's got a lot of money. Like what's this going to be like, and it kind of goes on from there, where
Yeah.
she's got that tension. The stakes are raised now because it's not just a guy she's dating, she's actually pregnant with his child, and she doesn't know kind of what to do. So that's
Yeah.
the,
And go ahead.
that's the setup. I don't know how much more I can tell without giving
Right.
any away.
Yes, yes. I'd love to dive into it deeper with you, but I understand, yeah, we have to be careful of the spoilers. But you were mentioning stakes, and obviously the show is called High Stakes, and so that's what I'm focusing on here. And love, death, fate of the realm, all those things are high stakes. But what I'd like to try and dig into is what happens to your protagonist or protagonist, depending on the story, but what happens, or I guess would say, what is personally on the line for Erin, especially if she fails in her goals here. So, can you talk a little bit about what the stakes are for Erin and what happens if things go badly for her?
Well, another thing that's kind of talked about kind of early on in the book is that she finds out about this ex-girlfriend, Amelia, who kind of vanished without a trace, who people tell her that she looks like they look alike. And so she's really freaked out about that. I called it like Rebecca meets the boyfriend because it has a little bit of that like Rebecca feel, like who's this woman and where does she go and what really happened to her.
Yeah.
And so that's in the back of her mind. And then she's got this brother living there, his half brother, who's under house arrest for passing off a painting as a forgery as a real painting. He claims he was framed. So she doesn't know who to believe. So she
Yeah.
doesn't like Tanner and Stefan have this like tense relationship. Um, and she just doesn't know if Tanner's just jealous of him, but he's mourning her. Her friend,
Hmm.
Lucy, is a defense attorney who's well connected, who's dating a prosecutor in the Southern District. And so, she finds out that Stefan is like kind of doing business with this nefarious guy. And so there's just all of these signs that something is amiss, but Stefan is actually thrilled about the baby and really wants to like marry her. And she's like, marry, like we didn't, and he's very, old school. His family's like not going to accept, a child out of wedlock. And so I guess pretty much her whole future is at stake, her child's future. She wants to believe that he's who he says he is, but
Hmm.
seems too good to be true. He seems a little too eager for the baby. She wonders what happened to his last girlfriend. But then there's also that part of her that wants to believe. The other thing is the reason I had like the pregnancy come into it, because I figure even if she starts to like think that maybe he's not who she wants him to be, he's got so much money and he's got dual citizenship. Like once the baby would come, like he could just take the baby and leave. Like there's nothing like
Mm.
really holding him. And she's like a single mother from Bay Ridge is not going to be any match for him, even if I don't want to marry him. So
Yeah.
she really wants to convince herself that he is like her guy. And
Yeah.
there's like a lot of reasons to think he is. I mean, there's a lot of good things about him. Like I said, until the end, I wasn't really sure if, she was being gaslit by somebody or if he really was who he said he was. So that's her dilemma. And then even just like from a pragmatic standpoint, I don't know if like New York is notoriously, rents are really expensive, but they have rent control. So people will like sublet apartments from. So she's subletting apartment from her great aunt who's in a care facility illegally. So she gives up her rent controlled apartment and goes live in the Hamptons. So now
Right.
she moves back to him. If she left him, it was going to be really difficult. He wanted her to give up her job. She has to give up her apartment. So it's going to be even worse. And then she's going to be a single mother on top of everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are
She
all the
becomes
things.
totally dependent on him at that point then, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if she wants to leave, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So
Well, one
that's
of the things that I've always admired about your writing, and I've read many of your books and have loved all of them, is you have this ability to build the reader's anticipation about what's going to happen. And I was wondering, this show has readers and writers watching, so I was curious if you could give us what's your secret to building on tension? Any secrets there? Any words of wisdoms or tips that you can share?
there's like I said, I'm definitely, I wish that I was the type of person who could plot the whole thing out, have the twist, and just focus on the writing. I mean, I know that people
Mhm.
can do that. I can't do it. It just doesn't come. I have to write and get to know the characters,
Yeah.
and then it kind of comes organically. So I think the reason that it seems suspenseful is because like I don't really know what when I'm
All right,
writing
so you're
it.
finding it, yeah.
Sometimes after I finish it, I have to go back and change a couple of things because maybe it won't exactly fit with what happened. But I think I look like I'm more in an exploratory mode the first
Hmm.
draft until I get to it. The other thing that I think helps is I have some trusted people who can read my crappy first drafts and let me know if I've given too much away or not given too much away. Most of the time, my plots are pretty solid. Like, I don't get a lot of people saying, like, oh, I figured that out, or like that was too foreshadowed or not foreshadowed enough. It's more like my character development will be thin, or like the motivations don't make sense. And that's the stuff I have to go back and like fix and work on. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't have, like, I don't have a formula. I wish I did. I don't have a formula for marketing success either, like I told you earlier. Like, I don't know why this book did so well. Like I
Yeah.
just I wish I could point to one thing and say, oh, it was that, but I really have no idea.
Yeah, no, it's well, I think it sounds like you've read a number of domestic and psychological suspense slash thrillers for many years, if you're going back to the Gone Girl days, and so some of it just might be your kind of this almost innate ability to identify when you need to to do the tension, as far as like setting it up or just the way you use your dialogue and things like that. So that it might just be very, very organic and just kind of a natural thing for you. You've taken kind of a master class in domestic thrillers just through your reading, I would say.
I think reading like so some of the authors I admire, like Shari LaPena, who I loved your interview with
Yeah.
her a while back. That
Oh,
was
thank you.
great. She talked about plot versus structure. I don't know if you remember that, but that was
Yeah.
so eye-opening because I realized
Yeah.
that they are two different things. I mean, I guess I kind of always sort of knew it, but it was like so clear that it's not plot, it's structure. It's how you unfold the plot to the reader that makes it suspenseful. So
Yeah.
things like dual narratives, like so that's why like in this one I have Madison also. So there's Erin is the main protagonist, but Erin is not the only POV character. We have Madison, who's the nosy neighbor, who kind of adds this spice to it, but she's got this, you know, obsession with the family, and she's having an affair with, the brother, and so she brings this interesting part in because her observations are different than Erin's. So I think sometimes
Hmm.
and I guess that does like almost go back to kind of like a Gone Girl when you flip the script and you get into Amy Dunn's head and you realize, oh my God, like it's so different than I thought. I was, I don't think you could do that again because I think she did it so early
Mhm.
on. But now you have to find other ways to do it with dual narratives or timelines that go back and forth, that sort of thing. So I like the dual narrative because you can let the reader know something that the protagonist doesn't know, which makes, the protagonist maybe in more danger or something, and
Yeah.
the protagonist doesn't even know it. And then the when you're reading it, you can be like, oh my God, she doesn't know that this happened, like that kind of a thing.
Right. Yeah.
That
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoy dual or even multiple POV. So I always like to know what's going on in other people's heads. I've always enjoyed that. Even back in the days when I would read stories when it was okay to head hop, when you're actually in the same scene and you're going back and forth between characters. There are authors out there who can do that head hopping correctly and right, where you always know whose head you're in. So I always enjoyed that. It wasn't until I started writing that I heard that that was like a big no-no. But I'm like, hey, there's some authors who can do that really well because I enjoyed it as a reader for sure.
or like Shari LaPena is another one who like she has a lot of POVs. She keeps it per scene. She'll change it in a chapter, but she won't change it in a scene. She'll just
Right.
like so it's not like really head hopping, but
Yeah.
and she does it in third person present tense. So that's a little easier than doing first person because when you're a reader in first person, if you don't know who the person is, like I've messed up my POV in some of my earlier books. So if any of you read like the Step Family, like I was still learning. Sorry about that. But then I'd
Yeah.
have to redo the audio, so I don't know how to do that. But I learned a lot about how to do POV over time and what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think every author
that's
has
a tip.
those first books. They would be like, "Oh, I wish I could go back and change this and that in the first books." That's myself included. So you're not alone. Uh, well, before we go here, I just have one more question for you. What's one thing that readers might be surprised to learn about you?
Hmm. I don't know which one to pick. Um, well, I said I had a PhD in history. They might not know that, although it's in my author bio. I was once locked in a prison cell.
Wow, that's great. That's a good one. On purpose or accident?
There's a really funny story behind that. But let's just say I found out that I was claustrophobic and I
Oh,
never wanted to go to prison because it terrified me. The cell was so small. It was actually, before anyone gets the wrong idea, it was a criminal law class, a high school criminal law class, and we went on a field trip to a women's prison. But we didn't know this, but our teacher had to lie and say that we were juvenile delinquents, which we weren't, to get us to go because it was supposed to be like a tough love thing. And
mm,
so, yeah, so that was
wow.
crazy. In the middle of like the prisoners like doing their thing and trying to tell us why we should stay on the straight and narrow, which was very nice of them. Like they were really doing like good work and trying to convince us. Um, one of the students broke down and started crying and said, "I'm an A student. I'm just here with my criminal law class." And they were all like, "What?" And then they whisked us out because there was going to be like a riot. Because I felt bad. I mean, the women were doing it to really be nice, and here was
Yeah.
my teacher bringing us as theatrics, and it was and
Yeah.
they could never go again after
Oh,
that. That was the last year of doing it.
yeah.
And as a teacher, I was like, wow, what kind of risk was he taking, like lying and like telling us that we were. But anyway, so yeah, I was once locked in a prison cell and it was very scary. And it was very small, and there was just like one little window, and this woman just looked at me and said, "How do you like it in there now?" And I was like, "I don't know what about."
Could you unlock that, please?
Like I pay more tax than is needed now. I never speed. I never want to be arrested. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. All right. Well, before we go, can you give us a tease on what's coming up next?
sure, I've got and it's so funny. I just said about multiple POVs, but I
Yeah.
wrote my first book from a male protagonist, and my first book was basically just has one POV throughout, except for three vignettes from the victims.
Yeah.
So it's Johnny Silva. I absolutely love him. He's like become one of my favorite characters. Um, and it's set in Honolulu. So it's about an affable valet driver with a shady side hustle that starts to think that one of his marks is a serial killer. So he's like this kind of low-level jewelry thief. He targets people who are rude to him or lousy tippers. But then when two women go missing, he starts to think that this guy that he targeted for the jewelry might be the serial killer. So he's got to like go and try to, figure that out.
That sounds exciting. And that you said that's out in when was it? February, March?
February. It's got a little bit
February.
of like a dark humor vibe. It's a little lighter for a thriller. So
Yeah. All right.
crime
That sounds
com,
good.
that's kind of a new thing, crime com with a little, dark humor in it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some well-known authors out there that their books are called thrillers and they have tons of humor in it. So that I don't think that's a problem at all. So that's great. It actually mixes it up a little bit for us
Mix
as
it up.
readers.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like to have a laugh every once in a while.
Absolutely. Well, Bonnie, my friend, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate you helping me kick off the new podcast. It's always great catching up with you, and congratulations on your newest release, The Rich Guy's Wife. Folks, yes, thank you for holding it back up there for us. Folks, be sure to order your copy today. Bonnie is the absolute queen of anticipation. You'll love uh, this most recent edition, and yeah, just check out her back list as well. You'll love it. All right.
I appreciate this. Thank you so much. You've interviewed the greats of the world, and the fact that you even like would want to interview me after some
Oh.
wonderful as Shari Lapina makes me very, very happy. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. And folks, you can learn more about Bonnie at bonnietraymore.com, where you'll find all of her social media links and every which way you can to get to know her and find more information about her. So that's it for today's high stakes story. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone. That's it for today's high stakes story. Follow the show so the next episode lands right in your feed. And if you enjoyed today's chat, a quick rating or review helps new listeners find us. Visit tracydevlin.com/podcast for show notes and links to today's amazing guest and their fabulous book. High Stakes is a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. Thanks for listening. Until next time, enjoy the adventure, everyone.